Okay, guess we're live. So I had a student reach out to me, and with the question of, well, it was kind of a several-part question. Is the outpatient physical therapy industry patterns right now currently sustainable? 10, 15, 20, excuse me, even 25 years from now. And then a follow-up question would be, how soon is too soon, or when's a good time for students to take up clinic management or even ownership? So the first one, it's difficult to project. The further out, of course, the more inaccurate any kind of projections are in terms of where we think our industry will be. Personally, I think all of healthcare is going to be unsustainable in current patterns, bar some type of huge economic change or political landscape change come the next 10, 15 years or so. What we're really seeing a trend for, and just general provider and consumer recognition, is that healthcare needs to start moving away from this mechanics dilemma where we fix people up, they get broken, we fix them again until they get broken to the point we can't fix them anymore. And we need to get away from this fee-for-service model where it's just a little too tempting and too easy for just systems and companies or providers to just keep servicing and billing and servicing without any true value added to the lives of our consumers. All that said, these type of economic ecosystem changes tend to take quite a while. Usually there's a parallel process in play where part of the ecosystem, as we've seen the ACOs are trying to do, are trying to go down a new road for sustainability purposes, for growth purposes, for better value of just general economic welfare. And then you'll see a sustainment road where people are still doing the same model. Now, one thing is for certain, outpatient physical therapy is starting to get to a point of divergence where there's going to be your ultra high-end boutique type clinics. A lot of those are going to be cash-based, out-of-network. And it doesn't necessarily have to be boutique per se, it's just that it's a boutique type experience where the service experience is just so much more elevated compared to whatever the market norm is. The second thing for sure is that it's all about scale. It's going to be about the volume of care that you can take care of is going to really define the sustainability of each individual business unit or network of business units. When we start to see a price war, right, just in any industry, what happens? Usually the largest producers will win, or the largest producers that have the best scaling abilities for price per unit, cost per unit to the consumer. Those are the ones that will win. And it's a roundabout way of answering the question, will our current outpatient model be sustainable in 15 years? I can't say I see the future, but I want to say no. And I want to, tell, everyone no, because it's not good for anybody. It's not truly helping the providers, and it's not truly helping the patients. I think the changes in our model that we need to see is an accountability level of value-added payment, both short-term and long-term, where providers and networks of providers get paid more for better value added to populations of patients and populations of people and their lives. And that shared profit, shared expense model will occur where, if the payers and the patients don't have to foot out so much for every single service rendered because the value added over time is better, well, then that cost savings can be spread around as profit sharing. Now, who's going to do that? Well, the ones that recognize that this will be the future, because eventually consumers are going to have their way. They always do, because they get to choose where to and where not to put the money. And moreover, now that with the the health insurance exchange, we're talking about legions of consumers that are very, very suddenly aware of where their dollars are going. When I have $6,000 that I have to put out of pocket first before things actually kick in, now I really care about every single dollar and cent that I spend. It's not so much just throwing away copays anymore because everything else is contained. It's about the fact that value has to be added. So I don't want the current model of outpatient physical therapy to be sustainable, because if we're really honest with ourselves, where are we going? We're going to, again, nothing wrong with ultra high volume, but is that high volume quality, right? And are we bending or breaking or blurring any kind of rules or lines to get there? Certainly that opens up a whole new can of worms as we talk about extenders and supervisorial rules, what the business mind feels is legal and ethical versus what the academician feels is legal and ethical versus perhaps what the new grad thinks, which all three perspectives matter because they're all part of the same social contract. So I want to see it unsustainable because I want to see it disrupted by a better value proposition, because we have so much more to offer than 3 sets of 10. So I think the outpatient model that will see itself through will be the one that can offer the consumers and the network of payers and even the network of providers across the supply chain a superior value, and the ones that do so with a truly elevated service experience. And this can certainly include getting into primary care, and I think it should. And I think it should also get into the education system, so that generations of consumers coming forward, when we finally do hit that 10, 15-year mark, and now all these young, educated persons are now legal adults making their own decisions about their own healthcare, that's where I feel like the fruits of labor will really pay off for the next generation to come. Now, the second question is, when is it too early for a new grad PT to take on their own clinic or manage it or own it? That's an interesting question, because it isn't the first time, it's not even the second, I would say it's probably the fourth or fifth time a DPT student has come to me with, hey, I was talking to this one PT owner of X amount of clinics, or maybe one clinic, and it's doing very, very well, and they're thinking about getting out of business. And I'm looking at myself like, wow, and they're approaching new grad DPTs, or even DPTs while they're across their affiliations. And it tells me a couple of things. Number one, it tells me that the current generation of owners of PT clinics and businesses, they're ready to exit because they put in their time, they've gotten their money's worth, and it's time to make a change. It tells me the life cycle is ready. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more of this. Number two, I just don't see, unless I'm completely interpreting our professional culture incorrectly, I just don't see, PT business owners approaching anybody to inherit their legacy unless they're sure that that person will do right by it. I feel that just year by year even, the DPT curriculum and culture as developed and mentored by the PTs of the present and the PTs that have in far past the last 20, 30, even 40 years have forged into this future, they've really elevated the quality of students that come out. It used to be this philosophy that, well, you learn just enough in school so that you don't hurt people, and then when you get out there, you're finally learning. I just don't think that's the case anymore. I feel that PT students are pretty good out of the box these days. They need a little fine-tuning, just like anyone else, but I feel the fine-tuning has more to do with workplace exposure than it actually has to do with clinical competencies. And yes, there's some cultural interactive issues within the profession, and even from various generations of clinicians to various generations of consumers, but that occurs in any industry. It's not just because we have these new grad DPTs out there, it's a whole new degree, and opening that whole box to discuss, it's not, in my opinion, part of the problem. So to answer the question, when is too early too early? I feel it's when your mentors and the person that you're buying the business from or going to carry legacy over, if they're telling you, you got to pump the brakes a little and slow down, that's a sign. The other sign is if you consistently catch yourself going, I don't know if I know what's wrong with this guy's shoulder. in that case, you probably do need to get a little bit more, repetitions out there in treating, evaluating, diagnosing shoulders, and seeing them matriculate to fully functional, rehab well, physically healthy people. And no one can tell you that. There's always going to be a distribution of confidence as well as a distribution of competency out in the clinic. One PT is not equal to the other, and it's not necessarily because of where you went to school, or what kind of background or propensities and natural talent or affiliations. It's just this whole holistic combination that makes you the type of PT clinician that you are. So I feel that with the right mentorship, even 1 year post-grad, 2 years post-grad, with the proper level of guidance and mentorship, it would be very seamless, in my opinion, to move into that. And that might not be culturally very acceptable in the PT world, because we grow from this idea that PTs were clinicians first. And I feel that in our current environment and ecosystem in healthcare, that's actually kind of detrimental. Yes, we're clinicians first. Yes, we're there for patients first. But boy, we're blindsiding ourselves if we don't also look at the business and politics and policy side. If we're not equally good there as a PT, as a business person that supplies PT services and products, then we're just as crippled on the opposite edge if we were an incompetent PT clinician. So, I think that if you're approached as a student or as a young professional, fresh PT, if you're approached to start to take over the legacy and ownership or management of clinic or clinics, go for it. It's a great opportunity. Some PTs wait 5 to 10 years to get that kind of management boost. Go right ahead. And not only that, you'll then be in a position where you can empower your colleagues and those generations that will be soon coming under you. I think that's one of the biggest problems with quality control in just physical therapy at large. Most of us work for some type of human resource structure where we are graded or evaluated or assessed for our performance in terms of minimally required human resource characteristics. So this usually has to do with company behavior standards and adhering to the company culture and demonstrating, some type of growth over a year, which typically is, well, I went to that course, I've demonstrated growth, or well, I've taken on a new type of, patient typology. I'm starting to do vestibular now, so I pass and I get a full raise this year or next year or whatever that condition is. But that doesn't really evaluate industrial quality of our profession or our colleagues. And I think that's quite a cop-out. It's an easy way for people to just keep on doing what they've always done without being held accountable for the changes that's required to improve the profession. So you would be in that position where you could set in new, value-based assessments on employee recognition, reward, performance evaluation, and subsequent, compensation incentives to truly be better at a qualitative and quantitative level within the profession and to the consumer itself. So, yeah. So again, question 1 is the current outpatient physical therapy patterns of business sustainable? I think it'll last, sure, 10, 15 years or so, but I don't think it's good for anybody. No one will truly actually benefit from it in the long run. So I wanted to see it disrupted internally before it's disrupted externally by some type of arbitrary policy. I want to see us be part of value-based solutions where we can demonstrate both at the micro and macro level, population changes in health and cost savings that can then be shared into profit sharing. And then number 2, when it's too early to own your own clinic as a new grad? I don't think it's ever too early. I think more of us should get out there. How many other type of substitute professions do we have that open up their own clinics or their own shops or their own spas right out of school because it's a viable business model? And we're not encouraged to or taught that because that's just not in the PT culture, but I think it should be. So I say go get them. If you have the competency and the confidence and the skill sets, if you have the right type of mentorship that can guide you along the way so that you can avoid the common stumbling blocks, what's to stop you? You know, I think, I hope more DP2 students and new grads look at the opportunity of, you know, either individually or as a group banding together and opening up businesses. That's probably the only way that our brand equity as a whole will actually raise itself organically until we have a larger, more organized, campaign front in the marketplace. So, hope that answers some questions. And otherwise, I will see you at Periscope number 4. Take care.